Okay, so here's Christy the zebra. We're gonna give up. We're not gonna talk about a patient today, other than the one you're sitting in front of you. I know most of you guys are probably wondering, because I haven't made an update in a while of my health issues. I've been doing pretty well actually overall. In December of 2023, I finally got a vascular surgeon to listen to me. And within 10 days, I was being split wide open with a left renal vein transposition, which for those of you that don't understand that is basically they cut me from my sternum all the way down, took all my guts out, and started reworking some of my pipes. So we moved down my left renal vessel down by 5 centimeters, and it was 3 times the size of my aorta when they got a hold of it, and it was very fragile and pretty much shattered when they tried to move it. That surgery actually bought me nearly a year out of the hospital. And if you watched my previous video looking for zebras, when the horses are in the way, you notice I had been in the hospital about every 3 months for an entire year, trying to get help, trying to get someone to help figure out what was wrong with me. And what we did figure out is that I have some major compression disorders, superior mesenteric artery syndrome, nutcracker syndrome, which is why we moved that vessel down by 5 centimeters. I also have what's called pelvic congestion syndrome and May-Turner syndrome, which happens to mess with my legs. So here lately, that last year, 2024 was actually a pretty good year for me, up until July the 30th. July 30th, I am busy teaching an advanced cardio life support class, or an ACLS class, to about 4 or 5 nurse practitioners, docs, nursing friends, couple people, and was scheduled to teach the PALS class right afterwards. And as I'm teaching the class, my voice is going down, 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 and I'm losing it very, very rapidly. Became short of breath, was having chest pain. Now, I'm teaching what to do about shortness of breath and chest pain while it's going on in front of these people. And they're all looking at me like I'm nuts. And Christy, why aren't you going to the hospital? Why aren't you calling 911? Why aren't you practicing what you preach? I'm like, well, you guys, it's the 30th and y'all are going to expire. Let me at least get y'all tested and get you taken care of, and then I'll go to the hospital, I promise. So they all agreed. Okay, they were in the middle of testing, and I wasn't that bad yet. So I called my vascular surgeon because the surgery that I had in December is about a 50-50 failure rate that it may or may not work or fail at any given time. So I called my vascular surgeon, and they said, listen, you really don't sound very good. We'd like to see you come in, but I don't think you can wait until tomorrow at 1:30. You really need to go ahead and go to the emergency room. So I decided, okay, I'll go to the emergency room. And of course, my students are yelling at me to call 911, which I'm a little stubborn. And yes, you should call 911 when you have chest pain and shortness of breath, and not have someone drive you to the hospital. Now, I live behind a hospital and a block away from another hospital, so I figured I was in pretty good hands. Traffic, meh, I live in Baton Rouge, it's gonna be terrible anyway. But so I call my mom, and she's en route while they're testing, because I promised them I would go ahead and finish testing them and at least get them taken care of in that class. When I get into the emergency room, I immediately check in. I'm kind of leaning off to the left side, and I'm having really trouble walking, and I get into a wheelchair. They bring me immediately back to get an EKG because I'm having chest pain. And while I'm having the chest pain, I can feel my mouth. Suddenly I can't swallow. And I tell the EKG tech, I can't swallow, I can't swallow. And then drool starts coming out of the side of my mouth. Well, at that point, I'm finished with my EKG. They wheel me out to take me into triage with the PA and the nurse. And when I get into the room, I start telling them, hey guys, I had this renal vein transposition done 6 months ago, and all of a sudden my entire left side went completely flaccid and I couldn't use it anymore, and I slid out of the wheelchair. I had a stroke in triage. So I had a full-blown stroke in triage in the emergency room. Luckily, there was a couple of friends of mine. This is the ER I worked in for years and years before I travel nursed. And I teach most of these people now anyway. So a friend of mine ran in and said, oh my God, you're having a stroke. So they scooped me up and ran me down the CAT scan, and they're dragging my arm on the floor as we go. And because nobody thought to pick me up and put me back in the wheelchair, they just took off running. And luckily, a friend of mine who works on EMS named Shane, great guy, thank you by the way, picked me up and stuck me back in the wheelchair. He said, I recognize that messy bun anywhere. And he picked me up, put me on the CAT scan table. The neurologists are coming in, they're talking to me. They're ultrasounding IVs to put in me because I have really terrible veins now that I've been dealing with these vascular system problems so long. And I go through the CAT scanner and I have a very odd moment. I don't even know how to explain it. I guess it was kind of, I wasn't really there, and I could see and hear things that I probably shouldn't have. My grandmother spoke to me and said, don't worry, you're going to get through this. And my grandmother had already passed away in February. And both of my grandparents had massive strokes back in the day and didn't get to the hospital in time. So I come out of the CAT scanner and they tell me my NIH stroke scale is between 4 and 5, and what was my opinion. Now, I will tell you one of my patient's stories on another time, but basically I watched a patient die from being TPA'd after a stroke. That'll be on a different clip. So I have an option of either hoping that this left-sided paralysis goes away or taking a medication that I know is the worst medication we give in the emergency room and possibly getting use of my left side again. So I went ahead and opted to take the medicine because I'm not a wheelchair girl. Push me off the side of the bridge. We're not putting tubes and holes in me that don't belong. I'm over it. So I've been through way too much and too many surgeries at this point to even want to fight this. So I said, you know what? Give me the medication. So that was the same day I was to meet with my sister and the lawyer that she works for to write a will and go through everything about, my business and everything that I have and my last wishes. And I had a stroke before it ever happened. So on a piece of paper, I'm literally scribbling down what's a couple of things that my mom's scribbling it down, what needs to be done. And I scribbled my name on it. The nurse signed it. My mom signed it just in case. And we went ahead and pushed the medication. Within about 52 minutes, I had complete use of my left side again, and everything went back to normal. So I had a fully T&K aborted stroke. My MRI was completely clear. I was in ICU for 2 days. Spent a couple more days on the unit, on the neuro unit, neurofloor, just for observation, and got released on Thursday or Friday, I want to say. Well, Monday morning, I had a really large class of construction workers down in Belle-Chasse, Louisiana, which is about 2.5 hour drive. And I looked at my mom. I said, I'm kind of brain foggy. I prefer to have help. Can you come with me? So she drove me down there. And 6 days after having a stroke, being in ICU, and not being able to move my entire left side, I was teaching again. I taught probably 30 to 40 construction workers that day throughout the day. And every time I asked them when we went through first aid about stroke, has anyone ever known anyone that has had a stroke? Got a couple of hands. Most people have. And I raised my hand too. And I said, I said both of my grandparents had a stroke, and I had a stroke on Tuesday. And the silence in the room was amazing. They were like, what in the world? Why are you here teaching us? And I said, the reason I'm here teaching you is because I want you to understand how important time is. How important time is, because time is brain, time is heart muscle. You've got to get your patient to a facility that can help resuscitate them. We only have 3 hours from the onset of symptoms up to 4.5 to get that medication on board to reverse the signs and symptoms. I happened to be in the right place at the right time, so I actually was completely reversed and didn't have any damage on my MRI, which is fantastic. So that's why we want them to go to CAT scan so quickly, and that's why I want everybody to remember FAST. FAST stands for facial droop. Have them smile real big at you. If one side's down, that's typically a sign of a stroke. Arm drift. Have them hold their arms out with their eyes closed. If one of their arms starts to fall, that's another sign. Speech is the S. And with the S, you'll know if they're not speaking correctly. You'll understand if they're having any slurred speech or any words that are not coming out correctly. I use, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Have them repeat that back to you. Or if they're calling something like a hairbrush, a wrench, it's not the right word. We're not using the right word for the right items. So that would be abnormal speech. And the T stands for time, the last known well time. Well, we knew mine because I was sitting in the ER. So we knew what my last known well time was, and that's how we got my stroke treated so quickly. But that's not going to be the case for most people. Most people, it takes about 2 hours to get them even to the emergency room. So we have very limited time when they get to us to evaluate them. That's why you always call 911 and use that FAST exam. With FAST, if one of the 3 of those is positive, there's about a 75% chance that your victims actually had a stroke. So it's very important to get them to a non-contrasted head CT or a stroke center as soon as possible so they can be lucky like me and still have your family member upright and doing what they love, which for me, it's teaching. See you soon, guys.